Hello, good morning, and welcome to my channel. Dr. Carmen McGuinness here, coming to you from a chilly, cloudy Central Florida. So for those of you that are new, just stopping by, this is a channel where we discuss relationships of all sorts. I'm a board-certified behavior analyst and health psychologist, so I come to relationships with those qualifications and from that perspective. So today we're going to talk about cognitive dissonance. Those times in your life when you're really not sure that you agree with what you should be doing or you're told you should be doing. The actual title of the talk is Where Enculturation Meets Your True Self, the Cognitive Dissonance Connective Tissue. So that's our talk. That's what's on the table for today. Just taking a peek to make sure we are recording. Yay, we are. So have you ever done something just because you're expected to or supposed to do it? Silly question, right? I mean, we've all been in that situation probably several times a day. Well, that's okay. There are rules, and rules are good for all of us. But of more concern is the stuff you do that doesn't feel right. And I'm not speaking here of conscience. That may participate, though. That may be part of it. I'm speaking here of that irritating little feeling you get somewhere in your body. For me, it's different for all of us, but for me, it's my throat. It just feels kind of full, and like I might blurt out the word no, or no way, or you can't make me do that, feel that, or think that anymore. That's how cognitive dissonance actually feels. So, of course, I do it because I'm expected to do it, or I'm supposed to do it, or if it's a really serious thing, something that really just doesn't feel like the true me, I take a different path, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. It has a lot of different labels, this feeling that we get. In psychology, we call it cognitive dissonance. It's always struck me funny, the name cognitive dissonance, because when you think about it, how it sounds, and there's no etiology involved here, but cognitive dissonance, like, I don't own that. That's not about me. That's not on me. That's something that was put on me by somebody else. Causes of cognitive dissonance include disparity between what one believes versus what one intuits or knows, what one has been taught to think versus what one truly believes. So common examples of these are religious, political, and social teachings, frequently from the family, usually from the family, also from society. Many people also struggle with family lore. Family lore can cause cognitive dissonance surrounding what one is told is happening or has happened versus what one actually sees or saw happening. Mommy loves you, but she's moving to Bermuda with Joe. Now that's an extreme example. Here's a more common one. I love both you children equally. No favorites here. Cognitive dissonance can also arise when we can't accept the actions of those in whom we've placed trust. Parents are an obvious example. Teachers, employers, and romantic partners also come into play. Company policies are often a source of cognitive dissonance for those of us usually that work for larger corporations. And of course, cognitive dissonance can arise when we can't accept our own actions as well. When who we're expected to be doesn't match who we perceive ourselves to be. When how we're expected to act doesn't match who we perceive ourselves to be and how that person that we perceive ourselves to be would act. Many people ask, is cognitive dissonance a mental illness? And it's not. However, if left unresolved for too long, it can lead to mental health problems such as low self-esteem, denial of reality, avoidance coping, detachment, and depression. Another question that I often hear is, what interior mechanism causes cognitive dissonance? Well, what actually happens in the mind of the individual who literally is of two minds on important matters. Many theorists tie cognitive dissonance to the nature-nurture question. How much of our personality is born versus learned? The question of nature or nurture dates way back, a little bit of history for you, dates way back to the 1600s when the British philosopher John Locke proposed that man is a blank slate, or what he called tabula rasa, at birth. Later, the French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued that man is born with an inherent nature. And a century later, killing mosquitoes here, sorry. They love cloudy weather. A century later, Francis Galton, cousin of Charles Darwin, proposed that man has predispositions which can be influenced by the environment, the people around him and where he lives, his life conditions. And this is the premise that is accepted by the field of psychology at large today. Generally speaking, cognitive dissonance is good. I think of it and propose it to my clients as the cognitive tissue between what we've been taught to believe and our truer inner self. It's rather like the friction that occurs when you rub together two objects. Things start to heat up and something's gotta give. We might also think of it like a neuronal fork in the road. We've been told that one way is right, but the other feels more true, more you. The healthiest way to manage cognitive dissonance is to notice it and acknowledge it. This might sound oversimple, but in fact, most people push aside cognitive dissonance when they experience it. Avoiding the nudge to choose a different path, to change, is one of the most detrimental things we can do to ourselves. Recall I mentioned low self-esteem, denial of reality, avoidance, coping, detachment, and depression. That's what will happen when we push it down for too long. So when it does occur, even if you're not ready to make a shift, notice the urge. Notice that lump in your throat, if you're me, or wherever else you feel it in your body. Acknowledge it. Make a note and ponder it later. Ponder it deeply. I keep a cognitive dissonance journal. I've done this for, well, decades, I have to admit. I'm older than I might look. I keep a journal. Whenever I feel this, I write it down and I think about it later. And I urge my clients to do this as well. The actual inducement of cognitive dissonance, causing it to happen, is used often in cognitive behavioral therapy. And in the last decade or so, it's been used at the center, as the center of treatment for various lifestyle and health-related problems, such as anorexia nervosa, drug and alcohol abuse in certain populations, and cigarette smoking among new fathers. So, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to embrace the dissonance as a call to action. The first step, of course, is to notice and acknowledge, as I said. Note it in a journal if you are willing to keep one. If not, just make a little sticky note or write it in your phone. Later, as you meditate, if you do that, or just ponder deeply your dissonance, give words, labels to the different symbols that you see on the path. I'm talking about both paths. I'm going to offer an example here. And this isn't a client. This is just a sort of a composite story that I thought of as an example for this. A young woman who is married to a man who is often verbally abusive to her 9-year-old son. So this is his stepson. He's been the boy's stepfather since he was a toddler, and now the boy is 9 years old. And the stepfather occasionally gives him a smack across his face, in addition to being verbally abusive to him. She's hit the cognitive dissonance connective tissue, and she's hit it hard. Things are really rubbing together here. She's been enculturated to believe that she needs a father figure for her child and a husband for herself. She's been enculturated to believe that owning a home is important, especially when you have a child. She doesn't approve of her husband's treatment of her son. That's not how she was raised, and it's not how she wants to raise her child. But she feels stuck inside the beliefs that she's been enculturated to have. Oh boy, is she ever in the heat of cognitive dissonance, right? Other things creep in as well, such as what we call instrumental concerns, like money and childcare and living arrangements and a nagging feeling that she'll never find another husband as good as this husband. She thinks of all the things that he does that are good. He earns a good living. He is, when he's nice, very nice. Part of what supports the avoidance of cognitive dissonance, the act of convincing yourself to ignore your own truth, is fear. Fear centers in this. And you know what I'm going to say next. Those of you who have been subscribers, I've been making YouTube videos for a year. It's a year this week. Actually, I just hit 1,000 subscribers, so some of you have been around for quite a while. You know what I'm going to say next. Face your fears. Now, I'm not saying just, pack up your bag and go, although if things get too weird, you might do that. What I'm really saying is to start to face your fears. So what would I advise this young woman to do next? Well, it starts like this. You visualize 1 year from now along both paths. Using our example, the young mother would visualize her life if she stays and her life if she goes. And of course, in her life is her son. He's not going anywhere. So here's where fears are gobbled up. This is where we kind of take care of those fears. One at a time, we just sort of stamp them out. Yes, she might be living in a smaller home 1 year from now if she takes that path of change. Probably a rented home rather than owned, maybe even a nice apartment. Yes, she will need to find a babysitter, something she doesn't need right now because she leaves her son with her husband when he's not in school, when she maybe goes out with a friend or something like that, or goes to the grocery store. So she will need to find a sitter so that she can have a social life. And yes, she may need to change jobs or work more hours to make more money. So these are the sorts of things that she sees on her path if she takes the turn. But she also sees her son happy and herself having shed the fear of her son saying or doing the wrong thing at any moment and getting called a brat or a jerk or even getting slapped. And she sees herself respecting herself again. Now, with that more palatable future in her mind, she visualizes the other way. She visualizes her life 1 year from now if she stays. Her son is a year older, approaching adolescence, getting more feisty. He's begun to argue back with his stepfather. He's lost respect for his mother because she allows the slapping and the name-calling to go on when he gets in trouble. She's lost respect for herself. When times are good, they're not as good as they were before. But she still lives in her nice house. She still has a very good husband as far as support goes, financial support. If she gets this far and sees the benefits of making the bend this far in this activity of pondering both futures, and she sees the benefit of making the bend onto the new path, her next step is to start to make a plan. Now that I see where I want to be, she might say to herself, how do I get there? How do I get from here to there? She may not even absolutely have decided to make the leap, but she can still start to dabble in making a plan. Looking at rental properties, for instance, or talking to her boss about a promotion, or looking for a new job. Making double payments on her car to get it paid off sooner. And of course, emotionally withdrawing. Now, from this new place, somewhere between the two paths, she can further consider her next moves and what feels right, what feels like the truest self. She can always get back on the old path if she feels she needs to or wants to. But she may find it's no longer acceptable. Once you start to visualize the truer you, living the life you were meant to live, you may not want to go back. And you may find that you do have the strength to go forward. So that's what I have for you today. A little bit about cognitive dissonance and how to dabble in it and using it to find a happier life. The main thing I want you to get from this is that cognitive dissonance is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a call to action. So I hope this has been helpful. As always, I would encourage you to seek out help if you feel like you're in a situation where you just really can't manage it alone. There's lots of help here on the internet, and of course it's easy to find help in the world today via a Google search. So that's what I have for you today, and again, I hope it was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you midweek for my midweek sneak peek as to next Sunday's content, and of course seeing you next Sunday. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful week. See you soon.